The next speaker is Swee Hong. Let me just share with you a little about herself. She's a lecturer of environmental design in Temasek Polytechnic, where she inspires her students, who are also here, on good lighting design practices. Swee Hong graduated from the National University of Singapore with a Master of Arts Architecture degree, majoring in studies on urban lighting, master planning and human visual perception of one's environment. The thesis is funded by NUS Research Scholarship. And prior to her master's education, she was working with Lighting Planners Associates, LPA Singapore, where she was given the opportunity to work on several high-profile projects like Urban Lighting Master Planning of Singapore City Centre, commissioned by URA. She's still trying to keep herself updated professionally and aspires to increase local awareness on lighting design excellence. I think she has a very interesting topic, something that I'm sure will help us rethink what the urban planning is about. So it's entitled up here. I won't speak further, but pass it to Swee Hong.
Thank you very much. Okay, good evening everyone. I don't think I'll bore everyone with a very heavy presentation, but of course I'd like to share my 2 cents worth of what. I would like to share my 2 cents worth of what I feel urban planning should be moving towards. So basically I was inspired by this topic actually by Phua initially, because he asked me to move towards the light side, which is what REACT has been doing, what Really Architecture has been promoting in the Design Mind Place workshop. So after going through a few rounds of the what we call in short, DMP workshops, I feel that what the workshop has been doing is really very good for the students and for the community to understand what planning and urban design should be. And then I was also inspired by another talk with URA that was organized for Mr. Fred Ken on a project for public spaces which is an organization based in New York. So what this organization has been doing was that they promote urban design not from the theoretical point of view, but they actually share it based on how the community would perceive their spaces to become. So their direction is more of a bottoms-up approach, where they actually ask the community on what they feel is appropriate for the spaces, and they actually implemented all these ideas. So after thinking about all this, I decided that is it a time where urban design should move towards another direction altogether? Should we really not look at a city based on what the plot should be programmed as, or maybe what is the direction of the city as a general, but maybe looking at the city spaces itself for the community and what it should be doing. So, and 2 of my students will also be sharing their experience on what they learned from the workshop altogether. One of them is Damien and the other one is Noel, so they'll be coming in at a certain interval during the talk. So I hope that everyone will enjoy it. Yeah, so basically before I begin, I'd like to share a very good quote that I found from a lecture that's done by a UC Berkeley lecturer. So basically he categorized city design into 2 different forms, where there is one that is based on a certain design that is driven by direction and parameters that is maybe addressed to a certain economic agenda. But there is also the other type of city that grew over time. That means a city that grows with its inhabitants, with its community. So are we actually moving towards a city that is governed by authorities, or are we moving towards a city that is actually breathing with its inhabitants? So definitely when we are looking at a city that is talking about authorities' direction and maybe on a certain region, Paris is the one that we have to think about. So, but we are not just really looking at the patterns of Paris city forms, but really how the entire city is formed and grew over time, and definitely with the agenda and the direction that it was originally planned for. So for Paris' case, it has a very distinctive pattern in terms of the city. And then we go back to Venice, where the city of Venice grew around the unique geographical location and of course the site that it was on. So in between Venice and if for all of us who has really been to Venice, we were very familiar with the little alleys that sneaked around the street, and then we'll always see, okay, this is Venice, this is where we all get lost in the city of Venice. So it's a city that is very distinctive, and it grew over time with its inhabitants, and the city does not fade with over time. It's actually very, very timeless. And then now it comes back to our Asia region, where we are looking at Beijing. So the old Beijing, where we really understand it to be, right? We'll be thinking about ancient Chinese architecture. It was prior to, I guess, the whole development that came about after the Olympics. And then all the architects were actually vying for sites and competition for different parcels in Beijing for the Olympics village. So before that, we used to think, okay, Beijing is Forbidden City and it has the Chinese architecture and whatever. So, and then now, you have the new Beijing, which is moving towards modern architectural form, and where you can see forms that are not, the typical vernacular ancient Chinese architecture that is dotting the entire Beijing cityscape. So now is the time for us to question, so is this the new Beijing? Or is this what Beijing should be moving towards? So what happened to the old forms? What happened to the vernacular architecture? So there is actually a sort of a burning question for me when I'm actually reading on all these ideas and criticism on how Beijing has been moving towards. So that brings us back to the question of what exactly is Beijing in Beijing, right? Then we'll be thinking, so maybe if we look at Singapore's context, so what exactly is Singapore in Singapore? Because as we are moving and progressing as a city, we'll be thinking, so are we moving in the correct direction? Are we still preserving the spaces that we want it to be? So what is the uniquely Singapore spaces, if we might ask ourselves? So okay, sharing this little quote that I found, which is in a globalized world, all the cities basically look the same. So we can no longer, as what I showed about, how Beijing has been moving towards and the modern city forms. So, like architecture-wise, with the architects are moving around the world, and we have Phua building in Singapore, we have Zaha Hadid building in Singapore. So we have a lot of exchanges in terms of architectural idea. But is this actually good for us in a way? Because things are actually moving towards a similar direction, and architectural form are kind of similar across different cities. So are we, creating a same cityscape all around the world? So has globalization actually changed the way urban design should be moving towards? So with that, because when we are talking about globalized city, we'll definitely have to think about the context of Dubai. Yeah. So just because Dubai, if we are architects, we all have to travel to Dubai, the Middle East for business. So we are kind of familiar with the space. So for Dubai, is this really becoming a city of just money? You know what money works, is driving the whole, how the entire city is forming? So is it just a fantasy? Is it just a myth of what is developing in Dubai? Because I can see that it's actually moving towards the form of the architect's playground, where everyone has the money and the budget. Of course, having clients' budget is what we all want. So having clients' budget to build whatever we want, to have our ideals, fulfilled in Dubai. Or is this, just a city that is actually moving towards the utopian view of what urban design should be? So this is really the time to question ourselves, is Dubai or is the Middle Eastern city moving in the correct direction? So this is actually a scheme that is designed for the UAE. So we can see that, of course, a lot of architects have been unveiling their ideas for the Middle Eastern countries to share what they feel. Okay, this is my ideas for the urban spaces in the UAE. But is this actually relevant to the context of the site that they are talking about? So this is when we start thinking about our architectural roots when in our education. We are taught about context, being contextual. So this is the time when we actually step back and, is this contextual in a way?